What is so important about driving faster than anyone else?
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. Racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
In 1971, one movie did something Hollywood said was impossible. It filmed real 200-mile-per-hour race cars during the most dangerous endurance event on Earth, with almost no script and a star who refused to fake it. Crashes were real. Speeds were real. The tension was real. These are 21 unbelievable facts about Le Mans that reveal how this film nearly destroyed its leading man and redefined racing movies forever. Number 1. Steve McQueen risked his life for this film. Steve McQueen wasn't just playing a race car driver, he already was one. By 1970, he had built a serious reputation in motorsports circles, even finishing second at the 12 Hours of Sebring. When he set out to make Le Mans, he didn't want camera tricks or fake speed. He wanted authenticity at any cost. That cost turned out to be enormous. McQueen insisted on driving at real racing speeds during filming. This wasn't staged footage on a closed studio lot. This was the actual Circuit de la Sarthe in France, where cars regularly pushed beyond 200 miles per hour. Insurance companies were terrified. Studio executives were furious. But McQueen refused to back down. He believed the audience would know the difference between staged racing and the real thing. And he was right. The intensity you feel on screen isn't acting. It's genuine risk. Drivers weren't pretending to flirt with danger. They were inside it. In many ways, this film became less about making a movie and more about proving something, that racing deserved to be captured honestly without Hollywood's safety nets. That decision changed everything and nearly cost him more than his career. Number 2. There was practically no script. Most films begin with pages of dialogue, character arcs, and structured storytelling. Le Mans began with almost none of that. The original script was thrown out early in production. McQueen became obsessed with stripping away traditional storytelling and focusing purely on the experience of racing. He believed the roar of engines, the long stretches of silence before dawn, and the exhaustion in a driver's eyes could tell the story better than words ever could. The result? A movie with barely any dialogue. Studio executives were alarmed. They wanted drama, romance, clear heroes, and villains. Instead, they got long sequences of cars racing under gray French skies, pit crews working in silence, and a main character who speaks fewer lines than most supporting actors in typical Hollywood films. At one point, production nearly shut down because no one knew what the finished movie was supposed to look like. But McQueen's gamble was intentional. Racing, he argued, is isolation. It's focus. It's mechanical rhythm. Drivers don't give speeches at 200 miles per hour. They concentrate. That minimalist approach confused critics in 1971. But decades later, it's exactly what makes Le Mans feel timeless and authentic. And it was only the beginning of the chaos behind the scenes. Number 3. It was filmed during the real 24 Hours of Le Mans. 24 Hours of Le Mans isn't a backdrop you recreate on a studio set. It's a living, roaring machine of an event. 24 straight hours of speed, danger, and mechanical survival. And instead of staging a fake version, the filmmakers embedded themselves inside the real 1970 race. That decision was almost unheard of at the time. Production crews mounted cameras directly onto actual competing race cars, not replicas, not controlled stunt vehicles. Real entries in the race. Drivers like Joe Siffert and Derek Bell were not just consultants. They were competing while being filmed. Imagine trying to capture cinematic shots while cars thunder past at 200 miles per hour in changing weather through nightfall, exhaustion, and mechanical breakdowns. There were no second takes. If a shot was missed, it was gone forever. The result? Footage that feels almost documentary-like. When you watch the race scenes, you're not watching actors pretending to compete. You're watching the real event unfolding around them. That authenticity came at a price. Coordinating cameras, drivers, and race officials created constant logistical tension. Crews were often unsure whether they were filming a movie or simply trying to survive a motorsport marathon, but that decision gave Le Mans something no racing movie had ever truly captured before. Reality. Number 4. A camera car crashed at nearly 200 miles per hour. To capture speed convincingly in 1970, you couldn't rely on digital tricks. The production team built a special camera vehicle using a modified Porsche 908, essentially turning a real race car into a high-speed film platform. Porsche engineers helped prepare the car, mounting heavy camera equipment onto a machine already designed for extreme endurance racing. It was innovative, it was ambitious, it was also incredibly dangerous. During filming, the camera car crashed at high speed. While exact figures vary, it was traveling at racing pace when the accident occurred. The impact was devastating. The vehicle was destroyed. Miraculously, the driver survived. Instead of burying the incident, some of the crash footage made its way into the film. That raw chaos, spinning metal, dust, debris, wasn't staged. It was real danger caught on camera. This moment changed the mood of production. What had started as an ambitious racing project began to feel like something far more volatile. Insurance concerns escalated. Tensions rose between studio executives and McQueen. Crew members started questioning how far was too far, but McQueen doubled down. If the race was dangerous, the movie had to reflect that danger honestly. That commitment to realism made Le Mans unforgettable and pushed everyone involved to the edge. Number 5. The film nearly bankrupted the studio. The movie wasn't backed by a traditional major studio from the start. It was largely financed through McQueen's own company, Solar Productions, and that made the financial risk personal. The original budget was reasonable by Hollywood standards, but once production moved to France and the script was abandoned, costs began spiraling. Weeks passed without clear direction. Racing footage had to be captured around a live event. Equipment was damaged, delays piled up. Every extra day at the track meant more money burned. Studio partners grew nervous. There were whispers that the project had become indulgent, a passion project with no discipline. Executives questioned whether audiences would sit through long stretches of racing with minimal dialogue. Some even suggested shutting the film down entirely. By the time production wrapped, the budget had ballooned far beyond initial expectations. Financial pressure hung over the editing process. If the film failed at the box office, it wouldn't just be a disappointment. It could collapse McQueen's production ambitions entirely. When Le Mans was released, it didn't perform like a blockbuster. For a time, it was viewed as an expensive misfire. What no one realized then was that its reputation would grow over decades. But in 1971, it felt like a gamble that almost went terribly wrong. Number 6. He wanted to race in the real Le Mans during production. Here's where the story takes an almost unbelievable turn. McQueen didn't just want to film the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He wanted to compete in it. Fresh off strong performances in endurance racing, including a remarkable second-place finish at Sebring despite driving with a broken foot, he believed he could hold his own the movie. Insurance companies immediately shut it down. From their perspective, allowing the film's star and financial anchor to risk his life in a real endurance race was reckless. One crash could halt production permanently. No insurer was willing to cover that level of exposure. The refusal hit him hard. Racing wasn't a hobby for him, it was a calling. Being forced to stand on the sidelines while other drivers competed created frustration that carried into production. Some insiders later said that tension contributed to the film's chaotic energy. You can almost feel that internal conflict in the finished movie. The quiet intensity of a man who desperately wanted to be in the cockpit for real. In another world, Le Mans might have been remembered not only as a film, but as the race where its star competed. And that would have changed everything. Number 7. Real racing legends appear on screen. One of the reasons Le Mans feels so authentic is simple. Many of the people you see driving aren't actors. Names like Derek Bell and Joe Siffert weren't cast for dramatic effect. They were real endurance racing drivers, already respected within the motorsport world. Instead of recreating racing culture, the production embedded itself inside it. Siffert, in particular, played a key role in helping the filmmakers gain credibility among European teams. His presence opened doors that might otherwise have remained closed. When real drivers saw that professionals were involved, they took the project more seriously. You're not watching staged pit stops or rehearsed track maneuvers. You're watching professionals operating under genuine race conditions. The tension in the pit lane, the precision of tire changes, the urgency of fuel refills comes from people who had done it countless times before. That choice blurred the line between documentary and drama. For audiences unfamiliar with racing, it may simply feel realistic. But for those who understand endurance motorsport, it's clear. This film captured a moment in racing history with actual participants, not substitutes. Few films have ever gone that far. Number 8. The sound you hear is mostly real. In most Hollywood films of the era, engine sounds were enhanced or replaced in post-production. Stock sound effects were layered in to create dramatic impact. Le Mans took a very different approach. Instead of artificially amplifying the racing sequences, the production relied heavily on real-track audio. Microphones captured the raw mechanical scream of engines echoing across the Circuit de la Sarthe. When a Porsche accelerates down the Mulsanne straight, you're not hearing a studio recreation, you're hearing the real machine at full throttle. That choice matters more than people realize. Racing isn't just visual, it's physical. The deep vibration of engines, the sudden downshift before a corner, the metallic whine of high-speed gear changes. These details create immersion. By preserving authentic sound, the film transports viewers directly into the cockpit. There are long stretches where dialogue disappears completely, replaced by engine noise and ambient track sounds. Instead of telling you what's happening, the film lets the machine speak. At the time, some critics saw this as slow or unconventional. Today, it feels immersive and bold. The realism wasn't accidental, it was deliberate. And it still holds up more than 5 decades later. Number 9. The shadow of 1955 hung over everything. Long before the cameras rolled in 1970, the name Le Mans carried a heavy memory. 24 Hours of Le Mans had already witnessed one of the darkest moments in motorsport history. The catastrophic 1955 disaster that killed more than 80 spectators when a car launched into the crowd. It remains the deadliest accident in racing history. That tragedy permanently changed how the world viewed endurance racing. By the time Le Mans was being made, the sport had evolved, safety had improved, but the memory of danger never disappeared. McQueen understood that. He didn't want to glorify racing as glamorous heroism. He wanted to show the quiet understanding drivers carry, that every lap could be their last. The film reflects that tone. There's no triumphant soundtrack swelling over victory speeches. Instead, there's tension, silence, a feeling that survival matters as much as winning. The drivers aren't reckless daredevils. They're disciplined professionals navigating controlled chaos. That emotional undercurrent gives the movie weight. It's not just about speed, it's about mortality. Without ever directly referencing the 1955 disaster, the film carries its shadow in every frame. And that's part of what makes it feel so real. Number 10. His marriage fell apart during production. While the cameras were rolling in France, McQueen's personal life was quietly unraveling. At the time, he was married to actress Nyla Adams. The relationship had already experienced strain due to his intense personality and relentless work schedule. But the Le Mans production pushed everything to the breaking point. Filming stretched on longer than expected. McQueen became consumed by the project, obsessing over racing footage, editing decisions, and production conflicts. Friends and colleagues later described him as distant and emotionally withdrawn during this period. The environment didn't help. Long stays in Europe, constant tension with studio executives, and rumors of on-set affairs created additional stress. The more chaotic the film became, the more isolated he seemed. By the time Le Mans reached theaters in 1971, the marriage was effectively over. The divorce followed soon after. For McQueen, the film wasn't just a professional gamble, it came at a personal cost. When you watch his performance, the quiet, almost stoic demeanor of a man who speaks little and carries visible emotional weight, it feels authentic. That intensity wasn't just acting, it was a reflection of a life under pressure. Number 11. It was shot in sequence, almost never done in Hollywood. Most films are shot out of order. Climactic scenes are filmed before opening scenes. Emotional moments are captured weeks apart. Actors rely on imagination to track where their character is in the story. Le Mans did something different. Because of the live racing schedule and the heavy reliance on real footage from the 1970 event, large portions of the film were effectively shot in sequence. As the race progressed, day to night, exhaustion setting in, tension building, the cameras followed that natural arc. That approach added realism in ways few movies ever achieve. The dawn scenes feel genuinely tired because they were filmed after long nights. The pit crew urgency reflects real fatigue. The rhythm of the race, steady, grinding, relentless, wasn't artificially constructed in editing. It unfolded organically. This also meant there was very little room for correction. If something didn't work, it couldn't simply be reshot weeks later under identical conditions. The race moved forward, with or without the movie. For McQueen, this was ideal. He wanted authenticity over perfection, but it also increased the risk. Production had to adapt constantly, adjusting to weather, mechanical failures, and unpredictable race outcomes. The result is a film that feels less staged and more lived in, almost like you're experiencing the event alongside the drivers. Number 12. The Porsche 917 became a legend because of this film. Before 1971, serious racing fans already knew about the Porsche 917. It was a technological monster, powerful, fast, and dominant on the track. But after Le Mans, it became iconic. Painted in the now famous Gulf Oil blue and orange livery, the 917 didn't just win races. It became a symbol of endurance racing's golden era. The film immortalized its long, low body slicing through French countryside straights at breathtaking speed. The camera loved this car. Close-ups of its cockpit, long tracking shots on the Mulsanne Straight, the thunderous engine note, all of it elevated the 917 beyond machinery. It became a character in its own right. Collectors today still point to Le Mans as the reason the 917 achieved near-mythic status. Its value skyrocketed over decades, and its design remains one of the most recognizable in motorsport history. Without this movie, the 917 would still be important. But with it, the car became legendary, and in doing so, it permanently linked McQueen's legacy with one of the greatest racing machines ever built. Number 13. Ferrari wasn't exactly cooperative. In endurance racing during the late 1960s and early 1970s, few rivalries burned hotter than Porsche versus Ferrari. That tension extended beyond the racetrack and into the production of Le Mans. Ferrari had its own image to protect. The company was fiercely proud, deeply competitive, and cautious about how it was portrayed on screen. While Porsche leaned into the project and allowed close collaboration, Ferrari's involvement was more reserved. That hesitation affected the production in subtle ways. Access to certain cars, team areas, and branded visuals was more complicated. The film naturally emphasized Porsche machinery, especially the 917, because cooperation made filming easier and more flexible. Ferrari entries still appear in the race sequences, but they never feel quite as central to the narrative. This wasn't just product placement politics. It reflected a real-world rivalry between two giants battling for dominance at Le Mans. Ironically, that competitive tension added authenticity to the film. The quiet stares across pit lanes, the intense focus before stints, it mirrors a genuine motorsport feud. Even off the track, the battle lines were drawn. Number 14. McQueen fired the director mid-production. Few productions survive losing their director halfway through filming. Le Mans did. Barely. The original director, John Sturges, was an experienced filmmaker known for strong, structured storytelling. But as production descended into chaos, no finalized script, constant racing variables, escalating budget, tensions between Sturges and McQueen grew. Sturges wanted narrative clarity, McQueen wanted experiential realism. Eventually, the clash became unsustainable. Sturges left the project before completion. Some accounts suggest he felt the film had no clear direction. Others say he was simply exhausted by the unpredictability. For a major production, this could have spelled disaster. Instead, the film limped forward under fragmented leadership. Editing decisions became even more critical. McQueen exerted greater creative control, pushing the film further toward his vision. Sparse dialogue, heavy atmosphere, racing as the centerpiece. The result was unconventional, even disorienting for some viewers, but it was undeniably personal. Few Hollywood stars have ever risked so much control and so much money to protect their creative vision. Number 15. There is no traditional villain. Most Hollywood films depend on a clear antagonist, someone to defeat, someone to hate, someone to blame. Le Mans refuses to play by those rules. There's no cartoonish rival, no sabotaging competitor, no dramatic confrontation in the paddock. Instead, the true opponent is something far more powerful. The race itself, the 24-hour clock, the machinery, fatigue, weather, mechanical failure, human error. The drivers aren't enemies. They're professionals who understand that they share the same risks. When accidents happen, competitors don't celebrate. They pause. They acknowledge what's at stake. That approach was radical for its time. By removing a traditional villain, the film shifts focus to something deeper. Man versus machine, man versus endurance, man versus mortality. The tension comes from knowing that every lap could end in disaster, not from personal grudges. This choice confused some audiences in 1971 who expected a dramatic rivalry storyline. But it also gave the film a quiet dignity. It portrays racing not as theatrical conflict, but as disciplined survival. And that subtlety is one of the reasons it feels so mature decades later. Number 16. Critics didn't know what to make of it. When Le Mans was released in 1971, the reaction was mixed and often skeptical. Reviewers accustomed to dialogue-driven dramas found it slow. Some called it empty. Others described it as visually impressive but emotionally distant. The minimal script, long stretches of racing footage, and lack of conventional structure puzzled many critics. At the box office, it performed modestly but not spectacularly. Given its inflated production budget, it was viewed by some as a financial disappointment. But something interesting happened over time. As decades passed and motorsport culture evolved, the film was re-examined. Racing enthusiasts began praising its authenticity. Professional drivers openly called it the most accurate portrayal of endurance racing ever captured on film. What critics once saw as a flaw, the sparse dialogue, the focus on machinery, later became its greatest strength. Home video releases and restorations introduced the movie to new audiences who appreciated its realism. Instead of flashy dramatization, it offered immersion. History softened its early criticism. Today, Le Mans is often considered ahead of its time, a film misunderstood upon release but respected for its uncompromising vision. Number 17. Professional racers call it the most accurate racing film ever made. Over the years, countless racing films have come and gone. Bigger budgets, louder soundtracks, more dramatic rivalries. But when professional drivers are asked which movie truly captures endurance racing, many still point to Le Mans. Why? Because it understands rhythm. Endurance racing isn't nonstop chaos. It's hours of focus interrupted by moments of crisis. It's long nighttime stretches where visibility drops and fatigue creeps in. It's calculated aggression, not reckless drama. Drivers have often said that Le Mans feels right. The cockpit shots, the subtle steering corrections at high speed, the way pit crews move with calm precision rather than cinematic panic. Even the body language of exhaustion between stints rings true. The film doesn't exaggerate heroics. It doesn't fabricate rivalries. It shows professionals operating within razor-thin margins. That authenticity earns respect. Many later racing movies leaned into storytelling formulas, building toward explosive confrontations or dramatic speeches. Le Mans stayed grounded in experience. For those who know the sport, that restraint is exactly what makes it powerful. And that respect from real racers may be the film's greatest validation. Number 18. It influenced every serious racing film that came after. At the time of its release, few realized how deeply Le Mans would shape future motorsport cinema. Modern racing films that emphasize realism, detailed cockpit shots, authentic track sound, mechanical nuance, owe a creative debt to this 1971 experiment. Directors learned that speed doesn't need excessive editing if the footage itself is real. The immersive approach, placing viewers inside the car rather than cutting rapidly between angles, became a blueprint for later productions. More importantly, the film demonstrated that racing stories don't always need melodrama to be compelling. Atmosphere, discipline, and authenticity can carry emotional weight. When newer films strive to recreate the physical sensation of racing, the vibration, the tunnel vision, the pressure, they are echoing choices first made here. Even advances in camera technology trace back to the risks taken on this production. Mounting heavy equipment to race cars at full speed in 1970 paved the way for lighter, more sophisticated onboard systems decades later. Le Mans may not have dominated the box office upon release, but creatively, it planted seeds that continue to shape how racing is portrayed on screen. Number 19. The opening scene broke Hollywood rules. Most films begin with exposition. A narrator explains the stakes. Characters introduce themselves. The audience is guided gently into the story. Le Mans does the opposite. The film opens quietly. No dramatic monologue. No bold declaration of purpose. Just atmosphere. Morning light. Preparation. The calm before engines ignite. The camera lingers. It observes rather than explains. For some viewers in 1971, this felt slow, but the choice was deliberate. Racing isn't a speech. It's a build-up. It's waiting in the garage. It's the tension before the flag drops. By refusing to rush into high-speed action, the film mirrors the emotional pacing of endurance competition. This approach defied Hollywood convention at the time. Studio executives typically demanded immediate hooks, clear stakes, obvious conflict. Instead, Le Mans trusts the viewer. The silence allows the environment to speak. The echo of footsteps in pit lanes, the quiet focus in a driver's eyes. When the engines finally roar, the contrast feels earned. That opening sets the tone for everything that follows. Patient, immersive, unapologetically real. It's not a movie that tells you what to feel. It places you there and lets the experience unfold. Number 20. McQueen considered it his most personal film. Steve McQueen starred in many successful films throughout his career, but Le Mans occupied a different space in his life. This wasn't just another acting job. Racing was his passion long before Hollywood fame. He trained seriously. He competed seriously. He surrounded himself with professional drivers, not just celebrities. Making Le Mans wasn't about box office glory. It was about capturing something he loved with honesty. He reportedly poured himself into every decision. Camera placement, editing rhythm, how drivers moved inside the cockpit. When the production spiraled financially and personally, he didn't walk away. He doubled down. That level of investment came with consequences, strained relationships, budget overruns, professional criticism, but it also produced something uniquely authentic. When you watch his performance, there's restraint, minimal dialogue, focused intensity. It doesn't feel like an actor pretending to understand racing. It feels like a racer temporarily acting. That personal connection is woven through the entire film. Whether audiences loved it or questioned it, no one could accuse it of being detached. For McQueen, this wasn't just a movie, it was a statement. Number 21. It became a cult classic. Decades later, in 1971, Le Mans did not revolutionize the box office. It wasn't instantly crowned a masterpiece. Some critics dismissed it as thin on story. Others admired its visuals but found it unconventional. Time changed that perception. As motorsport culture expanded and nostalgia for the golden era of endurance racing grew, the film found a new audience. Home video releases introduced it to enthusiasts who appreciated its authenticity. Restoration projects enhanced its sound and image, revealing details that earlier theater prints couldn't fully capture. Collectors began associating the movie with the rise of classic racing culture. The Porsche 917 became iconic. McQueen's racing persona became legendary. Today, the film is often described as one of the most realistic racing movies ever made. What once seemed sparse now feels disciplined. What once seemed slow now feels immersive. Its legacy didn't explode overnight. It grew steadily, like endurance racing itself. And that might be the most fitting tribute of all.